I was gardening in peace when my neighbor marched over, pointed at my tomatoes, and said, "Those are too close to my property line. Dig them up or I will." I laughed, until I woke up the next morning and found every plant uprooted, smashed, and covered in bleach. I knocked on her door. She smiled and said, "You've been warned." I reported her. Days later, my water bill spiked by $900. I checked the hose line. Someone had hooked it up to her sprinklers. What I found in her backyard left me frozen. I moved into this house in Denton, Texas back in 2005. Quiet cul-de-sac, decent folks, nobody bothered anyone. I worked for the city fire department until I retired last year. My knees are shot from all those years on the job, so I finally settled down and got serious about gardening. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes, peppers, beans, squash, and some herbs. Raised beds, clean rows, good soil. It gave me something to look forward to every morning. Then Roxanne moved in next door. She was new to the neighborhood. Said she'd just gone through a divorce, moved from out of state. Blonde, always dressed up like she was heading to some fancy lunch, but I never once saw her leave the house for more than an hour or two. First time we talked was about 3 weeks after she moved in. I was watering my tomato plants. She came right up to the fence, no smile, no hello, and said, "Those tomatoes are too close to my property line." I stared at her. I had measured that garden twice. It was at least 2 feet inside my own yard. "They're on my property," I said. She squinted like I was an idiot. "You need to dig them up. Or I will." I actually laughed. Not to be rude, just because it was so nuts. "You're not touching anything on my land." She didn't yell. She didn't argue. Just turned around and walked back to her house. I figured she was bluffing. I was wrong. Next morning, I go outside with my coffee, and I almost drop the damn cup. Every plant in my garden, ripped out of the soil, stomped on, leaves shredded. Bleach poured all over everything. The air reeked like a public pool. It soaked into the wood of my raised beds. The drip lines were cut. My tools were thrown in the dirt. I stood there like a fool, trying to understand what I was seeing. It was murder. Plant murder. I stormed straight to her house and pounded on the door. She opened it like she'd been waiting. She smiled. "You've been warned. You crazy, do you know what you just did?" She tilted her head. "They were over the line." "No, they weren't." She shrugged. "Good luck proving that." And shut the door in my face. So I did what any sane person would. I called the police. I called the HOA. I took pictures of everything, the bleach stains, the broken stems, the footprints in the soil. The officer took my statement and said it was unfortunate. But unless I had video or saw her do it myself, there wasn't much they could do. That stung. But I didn't let it go. I started rebuilding. Planted new seeds. Replaced the ruined beds. My back hurt, my hands hurt, but I was pissed off enough to push through it. Then I got my water bill. Over $900. I nearly choked. My normal bill is $110, maybe $130 if I'm watering heavy. First thought was maybe I had a leak. I checked everything. Every faucet. Every hose. The sprinkler system. Nothing. Then I followed the main hose line I use for the garden. It was always coiled neatly on a reel. But now, it wasn't. It was stretched over the back fence. Pulled tight. I walked to the other side. My hose had been cut and fitted with a connector, zip-tied to another hose. Her hose. It led right into her backyard sprinkler system. She was using my water. For her yard. I ripped it out. I wanted to march over and throw the hose through her window. But I waited. I needed to see what she was hiding back there. So I walked down the street, around the block, and peeked through the crack in her backyard gate. What I saw stopped me cold. It was like a secret garden. New sod. Raised beds. Trellises. A pond with koi fish. The works. It looked like a magazine cover. And right there, in the far back corner, under a shade cloth, were my tomato cages. Red twist ties still dangling. They were mine. No doubt about it. She'd destroyed my garden, then stolen parts of it to build her own. She used my water, my supplies, and my stolen cages. I wasn't mad anymore. I was ready. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my garage with the lights off, staring at the wall, going over every single thing she'd done. The bleach. The threat. The smile when she answered the door. The $900 theft. And now, seeing my tomato cages tucked into her perfect little garden like nothing ever happened? I wasn't going to call the cops again. That got me nowhere the first time. I needed proof. Real proof. So I bought cameras. 4 of them. Weatherproof. Night vision. Motion activated. I installed 2 in my backyard pointing at the fence, 1 hidden inside my shed pointing toward the gate, and 1 right on my garage roof with a clear view of the front yard and her driveway. I even placed an old busted garden gnome near the fence, hollowed it out, and hid a GoPro inside. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 4 nights later, just past 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I pulled up the live feed and saw her. Roxanne. She was in my backyard. Wearing black leggings, a hoodie, gloves. Carrying a pair of bolt cutters. I watched her walk straight to my shed, like she'd done it before. She tried the door, found it locked, and started cutting the padlock. I hit record on every camera and grabbed my phone. Called the non-emergency police line. The woman on the other end said, "We'll send someone. Send someone now. She's trespassing and trying to break in." Less than 5 minutes later, I saw the flash of red and blue outside my front window. Officers walked quietly around back. She didn't even hear them coming. One yelled, "Police!" and she jumped, dropped the cutters, and tried to run. They cuffed her on my lawn. She screamed, "I live here. He's harassing me." The officer pointed to my cameras. "You're on video breaking into his shed." She got real quiet after that. They hauled her off. Charged her with trespassing, attempted burglary, and theft of utilities. She made bail the next day, of course, but her face, when they led her to the cruiser, looked like she finally understood I wasn't going to let this go. But that wasn't the twist. The real twist came 2 days later, when I got a visit from the city inspector. Apparently, Roxanne filed a complaint. She told them I had illegal structures on my property. Raised beds too close to the fence, unpermitted shed, and even claimed I was diverting storm water onto her land. I laughed when the inspector showed up. Then I realized he was serious. "You'll need to provide your permits and move these beds at least 3 feet from the property line." I felt like I was losing my mind. "I've had these for years." She says they knew. She's lying. He shrugged. "I'm just here to document. You'll get a notice in the mail. So let me get this straight. She trespasses, destroys my garden, steals my water, builds her own setup with my supplies, gets arrested, and now I'm the one in trouble?" That's when I knew this was war. And I wasn't playing fair anymore. I started digging. Not in the garden, online. I searched Roxanne's full name, pulled from the police report. I paid for a background check. If she wanted a war, I was going to learn everything about the enemy. Turns out Roxanne had a pattern. 2 towns over, Frisco. She got into it with a neighbor over a shared driveway. She claimed the neighbor was parking too close to her garage. 2 weeks later, his tires were slashed. No charges stuck, but it made the local HOA newsletter. Before that? McKinney. Similar story. Complaints about water runoff and property boundaries. That one ended in court. She lost, but dragged it out for months. This was what she did. Moved into quiet neighborhoods, stirred up drama, pushed people until they broke. She must have thought I was another pushover. She was wrong. I hired a lawyer. Not some TV ad type, but a guy I used to play poker with back when I was still on the force. Real bulldog. I handed him everything: video footage, police report, photos, water bill, even screenshots from her backyard showing my stolen cages. I told him, I want to file civil charges. I want her held accountable for everything. He looked at it all and said, we've got enough to bury her. So we filed. Civil trespass. Vandalism. Theft of property. Theft of utilities. And we included damages for the water bill, the ruined garden, and the stress. My lawyer threw in harassment for good measure. But while we were preparing all that, she escalated again. One night, I woke up to loud thumping on my front door. I grabbed my phone and opened the door to find a fire crew standing on my lawn. We got a report of smoke. Someone said it was coming from your attic. I just stared at them. What? They swept the house. Found nothing. Of course. I didn't even have a fire pit. The captain looked at me and said, we're seeing a lot of these false calls lately. Anyone mad at you? I nodded. Yeah. One person. He gave me a card. If it happens again, call me directly. 2 days later, code enforcement showed up. Anonymous complaint. Said I had excessive debris in my backyard. It was a pile of mulch I had delivered a week before. Still in the driveway. Totally legal. They left without citing me, but I could tell they were annoyed. And I knew exactly who was behind it. I added everything to the case file. But it wasn't enough for me. I wanted her to feel cornered. The way she made me feel. So I decided to make her paranoid. I installed more cameras. High ones, low ones. Some were real, some fake. Motion lights. A big sign on my garage. Smile, you're on camera. I even left my GoPro gnome in the open this time, just so she'd know I had eyes on her. And it worked. I started seeing her peeking through her blinds every hour. Coming out at night to scan my yard with a flashlight. She'd walk to the fence and just stand there, staring at the cameras. Then the noise started. Middle of the night, thudding on my back fence. Loud, angry pounding. I checked the footage. Couldn't see who it was. Whoever did it stayed low. But it happened again the next night. And the next. And then? My back fence caught fire. Not a big fire. Just a corner. It looked like someone poured lighter fluid and lit it. The flames scorched about 5 feet of wood before I put it out. Called the fire department. Called the cops. Gave them the footage. Still nothing. The camera missed the moment it was lit. But I knew. She was losing control. And now? So was I. The fire was the final line. It didn't matter that it didn't spread. It was fire. To a retired firefighter, that's not just vandalism. That's war. I stood out there, breathing in the smoke, staring at the blackened boards, and something snapped in me. I wasn't just going to sue her. I wasn't going to wait around anymore. She wanted crazy? I could do crazy, too. I started talking to the neighbors. Most had kept their distance from Roxanne. She wasn't exactly friendly. But once I explained what had been happening, quietly, calmly, just the facts, they started opening up. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. Mrs. Delgado across the street had caught Roxanne dumping yard waste into her trash bins. Dave, 2 houses down, said his kid's basketball hoop kept getting, mysteriously, unscrewed and left lying in the street. One neighbor even found a broken bottle in his dog's fenced-in run. He'd always suspected it was her, but never had proof. I gave them the number for my lawyer. And then I gave the lawyer everything. We amended the lawsuit to include neighbor statements. Harassment. Unsafe behavior. Targeted vandalism. Multiple plaintiffs. It wasn't just me now. It was the whole damn street. That lawsuit hit her like a hammer. She showed up at my door 2 days after she got served. Hair a mess, sunglasses on, shaking like she hadn't slept. What the hell do you think you're doing? she hissed. I stepped outside. What I should have done months ago. You're trying to ruin me. You ruined yourself. She tried to slap the papers out of my hands. I didn't flinch. Just pointed at the camera above us. Smile. She stormed off. The trial took 6 months. She lied on the stand. Claimed I had threatened her. Claimed I cut her hose, destroyed her plants. But she didn't have video. She didn't have receipts. She didn't have neighbors backing her up. I had everything. The judge saw right through her. She lost. Big time. The court ordered her to pay restitution to me and the neighbors, over $40,000 in damages and legal fees. She was forced to remove the garden she built using my stolen property. Her backyard got stripped down to bare dirt. The city fined her for misusing utilities. The fire report, while inconclusive, was added to her record. And the HOA? They banned her from holding any position or voting in meetings ever again. But that wasn't the end. 3 weeks after the judgment, I saw a "for sale" sign go up in her yard. And one night, while I was watering my new tomato plants, thriving this time, with fresh soil and new cages, I saw her dragging boxes into a U-Haul. Alone. No help. Just her, sweating under the porch light. She stopped once. Looked at me through the fence. I didn't say a word. Just turned the hose toward the tomatoes and kept on watering. She moved out the next morning. And for the first time in almost a year, I had peace. I made mistakes in all this. I should have installed cameras earlier. Should have trusted my gut. Shouldn't have let my anger eat me up. But I'll tell you this. I never let her make me afraid. I fought back the right way. And in the end, that's what destroyed her.